So this is a prototype video. I don't know if the AirPod audio is picking up, but regardless, I probably won't post this, but maybe I will. The theme of what's going on in my head this morning, I think, is the result of some experiences, which is interesting in and of itself, because I've oftentimes told this story when I was in school about how there's a relationship between ideas and tools. And this story involved a project where I needed something to look a certain way. I needed it to look like woodcut. And of course, we were designers working on Macs and Adobe and yada yada yada. So I very quickly found myself in Photoshop looking at woodcut fonts and woodcut filters, and I was like, no, it looked terrible. And then all of a sudden I had this epiphany where I was like, you know what, it's a lot like woodcut. So I ran downstairs and used some of my printmaking knowledge that I had acquired during foundation year and snuck into the print lab and pretended like I belonged there and grabbed a piece of wood and carved a thing and made a print. I printed my poster and it looked sensational. And then when I brought it back up to the design side, everybody was like, whoa, how did you do that? So anyways, that experience taught me that tools don't think for you, you know? So that's other types of thinking that are in line with that would be all great ideas start with a sketch, and that, you know, CG graphics are not going to compensate for a poorly conceived of story. It's like putting lipstick on a pig. The tools are not going to save you from a bad idea. However, conversely, there is this idea that unless you know what the tools can do, sometimes that can hinder your creative thinking. And I'm trying to think of an example of that. Well, the example that occurred to me tonight as I was thinking there. So recently, as a graphic recorder, I attend a lot of events and I see a lot of facilitators in action, like a lot of them. You know, 3-4 times a month at least, I'm with a different facilitator, watching them work, learning a little bit more about what design thinking actually is. And I confess, up until recently, my knowledge about what design thinking actually is and what it looks like to fail fast, you know, with intention, or what these innovation laboratories are, was lacking. But so now that I've seen an event where design thinking has been used, or seen a couple of events where design thinking has been used, in my opinion, very well. And so I would argue that I have an increased knowledge about how tools can be leveraged. And now that that's the case, I have an idea. Say, what is your idea? It really took you that long to get ready to tell us your idea? Yes. So, my idea is to have a workshop, a design thinking lab, and this may sound more like a reality TV show that would turn into a fight, but I don't think so. I think that you could produce some pretty interesting clarity about relationships and connections and timelines. Relationships, connections, timelines. So, using design thinking, I would like to have a lab. Where would you like to have the lab? I would like to have the lab in the place that's my favorite place to have labs, which is in the Deloitte greenhouse. Like, bar none, in terms of the tools, the technology, and the environment for cultivating breakthroughs. The greenhouse it's a permanent place. It's not in a hotel room. It's not like, nothing against hotel rooms, but like, yeah, you could have, they're not doing wedding receptions in the greenhouse, let's just put it that way. So that's the place. Who are the facilitators? I feel like it would be important to have energy agnostic facilitators. You know, like some of the best facilitators, obviously, they're in-house for Shell, or they're in-house for LNG, or they're in-house for, but truly, I mean, I'm just being honest. The most effective design thinking facilitators I've seen recently are these AHS or D for AHS, designed for AHS facilitators. Like, man, they got more done in a 3-hour meeting than I've seen done at a 2-day conference, and I'm not kidding. So from an efficiency standpoint, that's who I want driving this ship. They're from healthcare, why? But I want them to facilitate a conversation on energy. Okay, so who's invited? Okay, now this is where I'm taking my experience, but I'm open to suggestions. I want stakeholders in all kinds of energy. If you listen to Chris Slobicki from Modern Energy, you know, he's no respecter of persons. He's no respecter of type of energy. He simply asserts that if you don't have it, you don't have quality of life. And that resonates with me. I don't think that that's a stretch to suggest that you need energy of some type in order to have quality of life. So Chris is invited. Watch his YouTube videos. Chris Slobicki, Slubicki or Ki. He's invited. I want stakeholders in geothermal. I want stakeholders in tar sands, oil sands. I want stakeholders in LNG. I want stakeholders in wind, in solar, and I want stakeholders in fuel alcohol. I want David Bloom from Bloom Distillation to be there. And I also want indigenous stakeholders there. And there's probably some more people who should be there. Oh, I want Enerchem there. Enerchem, the solid waste to fuel company out of Quebec and Edmonton. So yeah, like I want, if these companies call themselves energy companies and they actually mean that, then I want them to sponsor this too. And you're like, oh boy, that's a big ask. I want these energy companies to sponsor this discussion. Now, why? What would be the benefit to them in doing that? Well, it'd be like Kodak or Blockbuster sponsoring a conversation on the future of digital media. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. So those are the people in the room. You've got the facilitators, you've got the place. Now what are you going to do? Well, part of what I think should be done is that these companies, you know, they come, they introduce themselves, they tell their origin story, and try to get some of that understanding context. I want them to understand the difference between expansive thinking and reductive thinking, which means this is by design a conversation about crazy. Like, so you're going to have to suspend a lot of the you're going to have to step out of your paradigm. I mean, that's what this conversation is about. The reason why is because it's future focused. And so after everybody gets to know each other, a little bit of like future focus or origin story type conversation, then I want there to be some activities where people talk about their perspective and their biases about each of the other players. You do this fast. So you're going through this exercise where you're doing this really, really fast. You can use dotocracy and get all this stuff out on the table, and get it out on the table about what works and what doesn't work about each other in the short, medium, and long term. You know, so everybody's sort of commenting on each other in a systematic way about what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses in the short term, in the medium term, in the long term. You know, so everybody ends up with like a Transformers score. What do you mean by that? I mean, if you were a kid of the 80s and you played with Transformers, on the back there's this like rating system for different attributes and abilities that different Transformers have. Some of them have like amazing speed but low intelligence, or amazing intelligence but like 0 speed. You know what I'm saying? So there's like, you know, 13 variables that you're rated on. Well, clearly these different approaches to energy have, you know, advantages and disadvantages in terms of viability, economics, you know, context, you know, regional applicability, environmental impact, carbon, you know, so for example, part of the conversation might sound something like this. You know, like the lithium ion camp would probably have some detractors from liquid fuels camp, the liquid fuels people would say, you're just exchanging one geological disaster for another, chasing ancient sunlight in the form of fossil fuels in order to get lithium ion out of the ground. And as I'm driving, and it's like, I don't understand how much over the speed limit I have to do in order to get people off of my butt. Like, it's going to be a long day for you if you're that wound up at 6:50 in the morning. Like, seriously, dude. Go pay your child support. Anyways, where was I before my peace was disrupted by some a-hole driver? Oh, I was giving you an example of some of the conversations. I got a lot of these conversations bouncing around inside my head. I'm like, where do they belong? Like, so imagine that. So why would we do that? What would be the result of that? Okay, well, number one, it would be the acknowledgement that the future has to be designed by somebody. Who's going to design it? It's going to be by you, the people in the room. Why? You're the one with the experience, the ownership, the skill set, and the teams. Plus, and then this is back to the greenhouse. This is the big piece. When you map that stuff out, you'd be able to see where the strengths lie in the short, medium, and long term. You might see, oh, do you know what? In the future, there might be a synergistic relationship between nuclear and wind, or there might be a synergistic relationship between geothermal and LNG. Like, I don't know what those connections are, but if you map those connections out, then you might see where there are gaps and where technology could fill in the gaps. So then you're sort of going into technology with your eyes wide open about what the gaps are in the short, medium, and long term, about where technology could be a multiplier and close the gap. And working together, not in these energy silos. I'm in these meetings constantly, and people talk about silos. I'm like, everybody says that they collaborate, but do you really collaborate? Like, do you really? Because in reality, if you're going to solve this energy problem, you should be endeavoring to, in the name of sustainability and practicality, you should be willing to pursue avenues of sustainability even to your extinction. Oh man, what are you, some kind of tree hugger? No, I'm just saying that you're never going to find that ideal, what's that Disney movie, Future Planet or Tomorrowland, or any science fiction, Star Trek. There's these utopian futures where they actually figured out how to, like, extract hydrogen from water in a, I can't remember the Stan guy's car. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff on the internet about suppressed technology. I mean, do those things even exist? Secret Tesla technology, cold fusion, yeah, I know, and you sound like a nutter, but it's like, you're never going to find those technology multipliers unless you're actually looking for them. But the reality is, like, are people actually looking for them? Are they really? Are they looking for them? Like, I don't know if they're actually looking for them. Of course, they're going to hire a marketing and PR agency to spin a bunch of language like, we're future focused, but it's like, no, dude, we are a fracking company. We're upstream, we're midstream, we're downstream. Like, this is what we do. Like, like, does BP really care about the future? It's like seeing big garbage trucks driving around the city that say green and clean. I'm like, what do you, big garbage trucks, driving around Las Vegas picking up dumpsters full of plastic bottles that go right to landfill or worse, and you paint the truck green and put a recycling logo on it. You're like, good, we're making progress. I'm like, dude, that's not progress. Anyways, so maybe this is like a disaster idea. Maybe at best it's an idea for a reality TV show where energy stakeholders, and people tear each other's heads off. But it wouldn't be any worse than another reality TV show like The Biggest Loser or something like that, where you're basically cannibalizing somebody's well-being for your entertainment. So let's So I'm saying it would be awesome anyways. Who would be the presenters? Well, in my opinion, I think some of the presenters should be from the places in the world where this stuff is actually working. Like, do people even know about some of the sustainable activities that are being done? Everybody disparages some of the energy innovations in Europe as being like, oh, it's not sustainable, it's like government subsidized, it's just a fantasy, it'll never actually work. I'm like, is that really the case? You know? I mean, yeah. Some like guy driving with his lights off. Obviously, I want David Bloom from Bloom Distillation in the house. I want Chris Slabicki in the house. I want the big players in the house, like the people who understand statistically the impact and the significance of the delivery of their product. Like, let's be real, like pipeline operators, they understand that their work is of a national security level interest to the economy, for people's viability. Like, it's a big deal. I want people like, people who are responsible for delivering energy. It's not like, who I'm disparaging is protesters who are empty-handed when it comes to real systematic solutions in the short, medium, and long term. For example, moving LNG off of the West Coast from a global GHG standpoint feels to me like a part of the solution. You're like, no, we can't date the devil. I'm like, well, in the short term, maybe you're going to have to. Maybe in the short term, you're going to have to be a team player and accept responsibility for the systems that we've built together and work within the system to evolve the system instead of dismantle the system and create anarchy. Anyways, clearly, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But after that meeting, maybe that meeting could be an annual or a reoccurring thing where people come back, maybe they could swap talent. Maybe they could swap safety. There could be safety innovation presentations. And in the same way that my thinking has been altered by seeing a tool in action, I anticipate that, consistent with Deloitte's mandate to basically engineer breakthrough by design, that those relationships would be a part of creating a well-balanced breakfast for the future. Like, some of those people who hate each other might hate each other less because they come to understand each other a little bit more and recognize and be able to articulate what their common ground actually is. And there is common ground there. Like, that's what I like about Chris Slabicki's presentation. The common ground is standard of living, quality of life from energy. I don't care what kind it is, but you gotta have it. So what is the energy landscape going to look like in 25, 50, 75, 100 years and beyond? And I'm saying it's not going to happen unless the people who hold that intellectual capital do some design thinking. Anyways, I've drawn a number of times at the events as I'm listening and thinking about using design thinking to solve wicked problems. And and I want a graphic record for this lab, of course. Yeah, I totally want a graphic record for that lab. So, yeah, there it is. Design thinking, multiple stakeholders, energy of the future, wicked problem. Who should pay for it? Energy companies who want to be the keepers of the future. Don't be Kodak. Don't be Blockbuster. Put your money where your mouth is in terms of actually cultivating the relationships and the knowledge of tools and technology so you can map those breakthroughs in the short, medium, and long term. Peace out.